$1,000,000. If you fix it, it's yours. If not, your reputation ends right here.
I don't need your money, and I won't fail.
Hell's Angels bet. One Nirmala's female mechanic can't match their best wrench. Her engine work leaves them stunned. When Hell's Angels wagered $1,000,000 that master mechanic Fay Cross couldn't out-diagnose their legendary wrench Martinez, neither expected that a simple engine repair would expose secrets that could destroy the club. Fay Cross wiped grease from her hands and wondered if today would finally kill her grandfather's dream. Cross Automotive sat dying beside Highway 99 in Ohio's Rust Belt, its faded sign promising miracles that fewer customers believed possible. October wind rattled the corrugated siding while fluorescent lights hummed over empty work bays that once buzzed with impossible repairs. At 4:17 p.m., silence was broken by 12 Harley rumbles announcing the kind of business that either saved shops or destroyed them. At 36, Fay had inherited more than tools and debt. She'd inherited Grandpa Pete's reputation for fixing what couldn't be fixed. 20 years of bleeding knuckles and 18-hour days had earned her respect from the few customers who cared more about results than gender stereotypes. But Anvil Creek was dying faster than she could save it. Factories closed, young folks fled to cities, and her customer base shrank to farmers nursing 30-year-old equipment and truckers too broke for dealership prices. The shop survived on stubbornness rather than profit, pride rather than practical business sense. Real mechanics fix what's broken, not what they expect to be broken, Grandpa Pete used to say while teaching her to listen to engines with her heart instead of just her ears. That wisdom had gotten her through countless impossible jobs, but it couldn't pay the overdue mortgage notice sitting on her desk. Her hands bore 20 years of scars, burns from manifolds, cuts from sheet metal, calluses from tools that had become extensions of her soul. Those hands had built miracles from broken dreams, but miracles didn't pay bills in a town that had forgotten how to hope. 12 Hell's Angels filled her parking lot with disciplined precision, their leather-clad presence transforming Cross Automotive from desperate small business into something that mattered. Behind them, a flatbed trailer carried a canvas-covered motorcycle, something precious enough to transport rather than ride, broken enough to need the kind of help that legends were built on. Real mechanics fix what's broken, not what they expect to be broken. Hell's Angels President Tank Morrison approached with respect that surprised Fay. No condescension, no smirks about women and motorcycles, just the careful courtesy of someone who understood that real expertise came in all packages. "Ms. Cross, heard you handle the impossible cases," Tank said, pulling canvas away to reveal a 1947 Harley-Davidson knucklehead that took Fay's breath away. Chrome gleamed like liquid silver, paint job was museum perfect, but something was wrong. Oil stains beneath engine cases, scorched metal around exhaust ports, the smell of overheated steel that meant serious problems. "She's beautiful," Fay said, circling the knucklehead like a surgeon examining a patient. "What's the trouble?" "Overheats after 10 minutes. Seizes up completely," Tank replied grimly. "Been to 6 mechanics, 2 Harley dealers, even flew a vintage specialist from California. Nobody can fix her." Fay knelt beside the engine, her trained eye cataloging modifications that weren't original 1947 specifications. Modern primary drive, upgraded electrical, contemporary carburetor performance mods that might create problems original engineers never anticipated. "This is your founder's bike, isn't it?" Fay asked, recognizing the reverent way Hell's Angels gathered around the machine. Iron Mike Sullivan's knucklehead, Tank confirmed. Symbol of everything Hell's Angels represent. We need her running for our 75th anniversary ride next weekend. Tank's road captain stepped forward, Hispanic man in his 50s whose patches read wrench and whose scarred hands matched Fay's own. Ma'am, I'm Miguel Martinez, been working on Harleys for 30 years, built engines from scratch, restored dozens of knuckleheads. His tone carried professional respect, tinged with challenge. Tank wants to make you an offer. Fay sensed the test coming, not malicious, but serious. Hell's Angels didn't travel 300 miles for ordinary repair estimates. Miguel's our best wrench, Tank explained. Never met an engine he couldn't fix. But Iron Mike's bike has him stumped. He paused meaningfully. I'll wager $1 million that you can figure out what he can't. The amount hit Fay like a physical blow, more money than Cross Automotive saw in 3 years. Enough to save the shop and maybe the whole damn town. You're betting against your own mechanic? Fay asked, studying Miguel's face for signs of offense. Instead, she saw professional curiosity mixed with what might have been hope. I'm betting on whoever's good enough to earn it, Tank replied. Winner takes the money and our respect. Deal? Fay looked around her grandfather's shop, empty bays, overdue bills, dreams dying one day at a time. Real mechanics fix what's broken, she whispered, hearing Grandpa Pete's voice. Deal. Miguel approached Iron Mike's knucklehead with the ritual respect of someone who understood that motorcycles were more than machines. They were statements of identity, symbols of freedom, monuments to the people who'd ridden them into legend. Cooling system's perfect, Miguel explained, demonstrating his systematic approach. Oil flows good, carburetors properly jetted, ignition timing spot on. Everything tests normal until you run her under load. Fay watched Miguel's diagnostic process with growing respect. This wasn't some shade tree mechanic stumped by a loose wire. Miguel knew his craft. Whatever was wrong with Iron Mike's bike, it was subtle enough to defeat 30 years of expert experience. 10 minutes, Miguel continued. Engine temperature climbs into the red zone. Thermal protection kicks in, shuts everything down. Cooler off for an hour. Same thing happens again. Previous mechanics blame the cooling system? Fay asked. Every damn one of them. Replaced radiator, water pump, thermostat, cooling lines. Problem persists. Fay knelt beside the knucklehead, closing her eyes and placing her hands on the engine case. Grandpa Pete had taught her this sometimes. You had to feel a machine's problems before you could understand them. The metal told stories her instruments couldn't. Vibration patterns, thermal signatures, the subtle rhythms that separated healthy engines from sick ones. Miguel, she said quietly, what if the cooling system isn't the problem? What if something else is making too much heat? Sometimes the hardest problems to solve are the ones hiding in plain sight. Fay's approach differed from Miguel's component-by-component analysis. Instead of checking individual systems, she studied how modifications interacted with each other. Modern parts in vintage housing created thermal dynamics that 1947 engineers never anticipated. Miguel, who installed the modern primary drive components? Fay asked, examining the upgraded clutch system. Custom shop in Detroit, Tank replied. Cost us 20 grand for complete performance upgrade, supposed to improve reliability. Fay connected thermal imaging equipment to map heat distribution patterns. What she found made her whistle softly. The modern clutch generated significantly more heat than original 1947 specifications, overwhelming vintage cooling capacity. "There's your problem," Fay announced, showing thermal readings to impressed Hell's Angels. "Modern clutch makes more heat than original cooling system can handle. Temperature cascades until thermal protection shuts everything down." Miguel studied her analysis with professional amazement. "Jesus, 30 years? And I never thought to check thermal load from performance modifications." "Different approaches," Fay said diplomatically. "You analyzed components, I analyzed integration. Both methods work, just depends on the problem." Tank nodded slowly. "So you figured out what 6 mechanics and 2 dealers couldn't. But can you fix it?" Word spread through Anvil Creek about the Hells Angels consultation, drawing curious locals who'd never seen Motorcycle Club take over Cross Automotive. Sheriff Walsh stopped by with professional concern tempered by respect for Tank's law-abiding reputation. "Fay, everything okay here?" Walsh asked, noting 12 Harleys and leather-clad riders who commanded automatic respect through presence rather than intimidation. "Sheriff, we're consulting about vintage motorcycle restoration," Tank explained politely. "Technical assistance for anniversary celebration." But Fay noticed tension among Hell's Angels that went beyond mechanical frustration. Something about Iron Mike's bike created anxiety that thermal problems couldn't explain. "Tank, is there something else I should know about this knucklehead?" Fay asked after Walsh departed. Tank exchanged glances with Miguel before making difficult decision. "Fay, Iron Mike died 10 years ago, without explaining how he acquired certain components. When we started restoration, we discovered complications." "What kind of complications?" Miguel pulled out documentation that made Fay's blood chill. Some serial numbers match motorcycles reported stolen from police evidence lockers in the 1970s. The revelation transformed mechanical consultation into potential federal crime investigation. Iron Mike's legendary knucklehead might be built from stolen parts. "You're telling me Hell's Angels founder rode stolen police evidence for 30 years? Fay asked, processing implications that extended far beyond engine repairs. "We don't know," Tank replied honestly. "Iron Mike claimed everything was legal military surplus purchased after his Air Force discharge. But serial numbers suggest otherwise." Fay understood the stakes now. Hell's Angels needed Iron Mike's bike running, not just for anniversary celebration, but to preserve organizational reputation that stolen evidence would destroy through federal prosecution. If federal investigators discover Hell's Angels founder rode stolen police motorcycles, Miguel explained grimly, RICO charges could dismantle entire organization. "So fixing the overheating is secondary to proving legal acquisition," Fay observed. "Both problems need solving," Tank confirmed, "thermal issues and legal concerns." Fay studied Iron Mike's knucklehead with new perspective, not just broken motorcycle, but potential evidence in federal investigation that could destroy organization whose members had traveled 300 miles seeking her expertise. "Tank, I'll solve your thermal problems," Fay said with determination that surprised everyone. "But the legal issues require more than mechanical expertise." Fay began fabricating cooling modifications while researching Iron Mike's military background through online databases that might validate his claims about legal component acquisition. Modern clutch needed additional heat dissipation, but vintage aesthetics required invisible solutions. "Grandpa Pete always said real mechanics fix what's broken," Fay muttered while machining custom cooling fins. but he never mentioned fixing reputations along with engines. Her work was interrupted when Miguel discovered additional serial numbers that complicated Iron Mike's innocence components dated after his death, suggesting current Hells Angels leadership had unknowingly installed stolen evidence during restoration. "Fay, we got bigger problems," Miguel announced. "These parts were reported stolen in 1987, but Iron Mike died in 2014. Someone else installed stolen components." Tank's expression hardened with understanding. "Someone's framing Hells Angels through Iron Mike's memorial bike." The conspiracy transformed Fay's mechanical challenge into detective work, not just fixing thermal problems, but identifying whoever had sabotaged Hells Angels through planted evidence designed to trigger federal prosecution. "Tank," Fay said quietly, "whoever did this knows your security, your restoration project, and your vulnerabilities to federal investigation. This is inside work." Sometimes the greatest mechanical challenges aren't about fixing machines. They're about fixing the damage people do to each other. Fay's cooling system modifications were nearly complete when FBI agents arrived with warrant to seize Iron Mike's knucklehead as evidence in federal investigation into systematic police evidence theft spanning 40 years. Special Agent Sarah Martinez, FBI Organized Crime Task Force, the lead agent announced, while tactical team positioned around Cross Automotive. "We have information about stolen police property connected to Hells Angels leadership." Tank maintained composure despite organizational threat that could send him to federal prison. "Agent Martinez, we're consulting civilian mechanic about vintage motorcycle restoration. Nothing illegal about seeking technical expertise." But Martinez had documentation that made Fay's heart sink, detailed intelligence about specific serial numbers, component dating, and federal violations that would trigger RICO prosecutions destroying Hells Angels through founders' alleged crimes. "Mr. Morrison, our investigation shows systematic acquisition of stolen police motorcycles dating to 1973, Martinez explained. "Your founder's bike contains evidence that implicates current leadership in ongoing criminal conspiracy." Fay realized her mechanical expertise had uncovered federal case that threatened not just Hells Angels, but her own involvement in potential evidence tampering through repair work that federal prosecutors might interpret as obstruction of justice. "Agent Martinez, I can prove Iron Mike's innocence," Fay announced, surprising everyone. "But I need 4 hours to complete analysis that will either clear Hells Angels or confirm your suspicions." Martinez studied Fay with professional assessment. "Ms. Cross, you're claiming civilian mechanical expertise can resolve federal investigation that's been active for 2 years? I'm claiming systematic analysis can determine when components were actually installed versus when they were allegedly stolen," Fay replied with confidence earned through 20 years of solving impossible problems. She showed Martinez her chronological analysis tool marks, wear patterns, assembly techniques that revealed when modifications had been made to Iron Mike's knucklehead. "Agent Martinez, these stolen components were installed within past 6 months, not during original 1970s construction," Fay explained. "Someone sabotaged Hells Angels by planting evidence in Founder's Memorial motorcycle." The revelation stunned everyone as investigation shifted from prosecuting Hells Angels to identifying conspiracy that had infiltrated organization while planning systematic destruction through planted evidence. You're saying someone framed Hell's Angels through Iron Mike's bike? Martinez asked, processing implications of criminal conspiracy that had manipulated federal law enforcement. Exactly. Original restoration used legal military surplus, but stolen components were planted recently to create federal case against current leadership. Tank studied Fay with amazement, mixed with gratitude. Fay, you just saved Hell's Angels from federal prosecution we never saw coming. But conspiracy implications were terrifying. Someone with access to stolen police evidence and Hell's Angels security had orchestrated systematic frame-up designed to destroy organization through corrupted federal investigation. Agent Martinez, whoever planted this evidence has access to 40-year-old stolen police property and intimate knowledge of Hell's Angels' internal operations. Fay continued, connecting dots that revealed organized conspiracy rather than historical crime. FBI investigation shifted from prosecuting Hell's Angels to identifying criminal network that had manipulated federal agencies through planted evidence designed to appear historically authentic. Ms. Cross, your mechanical analysis has exposed systematic corruption that undermines multiple federal investigations, Martinez acknowledged. We'll need complete documentation of your findings for evidence authentication. Miguel approached Fay with respect that transcended professional competition. Fay, you didn't just out-diagnose me, you saved Hell's Angels from conspiracy we never suspected. Tank nodded agreement. Miguel's right. This goes deeper than million-dollar bet. You've earned respect that money can't buy. But Fay realized her victory came with responsibility. Exposing criminal conspiracy that had targeted Hell's Angels meant becoming federal witness in investigation that would require testimony against unknown enemies who demonstrated sophisticated criminal capabilities. Tank, fixing your cooling system was easy, Fay said quietly. Fixing the damage from this conspiracy might take years. Real mechanics fix what's broken, not what they expect to be broken, and sometimes what's broken isn't the machine, but the people trying to destroy it. Federal investigation revealed criminal network that had systematically targeted motorcycle organizations through evidence-planting operations designed to trigger RICO prosecutions. Fay's mechanical expertise had prevented successful frame-up that would have destroyed Hell's Angels through crimes they never committed. Ms. Cross, your diagnostic methodology will become federal standard for authenticating evidence in motorcycle-related cases, Agent Martinez announced during debriefing that included Hell's Angels leadership and federal prosecutors. Tank realized Fay's technical skills had saved organization from conspiracy requiring years of planning, access to stolen evidence, and corruption of federal investigation procedures. Fay, you won more than our million-dollar bet, Tank said with gratitude that transcended financial obligation. You won our lives back. But criminal conspiracy had implications extending beyond Hell's Angels. Multiple motorcycle organizations faced federal prosecution based on potentially planted evidence that Fay's authentication methods could now identify and challenge. Miguel stepped forward with dignity intact, despite losing technical competition to civilian mechanic whose expertise exceeded his 30 years of experience. Fay, you taught me something important today. Expertise isn't about what you know, it's about how you think. His acknowledgement carried weight of professional respect earned through demonstrated competence rather than claimed credentials. Different approaches, Same goal, Fay replied diplomatically. You analyze components perfectly. I just looked at integration patterns because Grandpa Pete taught me to listen to whole machines, not just individual parts. Tank prepared to present $1 million payment that Fay had earned through superior diagnostic skills, but she surprised everyone with her response. Tank, I don't need your money, Fay said quietly. What I need is partnership. Partnership? Tank asked, processing unexpected proposal from mechanic who just earned more than most people saw in lifetime. Hell's Angels have diagnostic challenges that civilian mechanics can't handle. Vintage bikes with unique problems, performance modifications creating integration issues, federal authentication requirements for evidence analysis. Fay gestured around her grandfather's shop with new vision. Cross Automotive could become Hell's Angels' exclusive diagnostic facility. You get expert technical support, I get steady business that saves Anvil Creek. Miguel nodded enthusiastic approval. Tank, she's right. We need civilian expertise that federal agencies respect, but motorcycle culture trusts. The proposal created win-win scenario that addressed Hell's Angels' technical needs while providing Fay with customer base that appreciated rather than questioned her expertise. Tank studied Cross Automotive with new appreciation, not dying small-town shop, but potential headquarters for specialized technical services that Hell's Angels needed to maintain both mechanical excellence and legal compliance. Fay Cross, Hell's Angels accept your partnership proposal. Tank announced with formal authority that committed organization to supporting Cross Automotive through exclusive contracts and referral network. Furthermore, Tank continued, Miguel Martinez will serve as liaison coordinator between Hell's Angels chapters and Cross Automotive Diagnostic Services. Miguel smiled with genuine pleasure. Fay, you beat me fair and square, then offered partnership instead of humiliation. That's class I can respect. The handshake between three people, Hell's Angels president, master mechanic, and determined entrepreneur sealed relationship that would transform not just individual careers, but entire communities' economic future. 2 years later, Cross Automotive had become premier destination for vintage Harley restoration while serving as Hell's Angels certified diagnostic facility for mechanical and legal authentication services. Anvil Creek experienced economic renaissance as motorcycle enthusiasts traveled from across America seeking Fay's specialized expertise, creating jobs and revitalizing community that had been dying before her diagnostic skills proved small-town expertise could compete internationally. Miguel established Cross Automotive Technical Training Program, teaching traditional diagnostic methods alongside contemporary authentication techniques to mechanics, serving both civilian and federal requirements. Fay, you saved more than Hell's Angels, Tank observed during a ceremony celebrating Iron Mike's Knucklehead's successful completion of 75th anniversary cross-country ride. You saved entire community through partnership that honors expertise over assumptions. Fay smiled, understanding her grandfather's wisdom had guided her toward solution that fixed what was truly broken, not just engines, but relationships between communities that shared more common ground than differences. Real mechanics fix what's broken, not what they expect to be broken. She quoted Grandpa Pete one more time. Sometimes what needs fixing isn't mechanical, it's the trust between people who should be working together. Cross Automotive's partnership with Hell's Angels attracted federal contracts for evidence authentication while establishing Anvil Creek as destination for impossible motorcycle repairs that other shops abandoned. Miguel's training program graduated mechanics specializing in vintage restoration and federal compliance, creating skilled workforce that supported economic revival based on specialized expertise. Tank's endorsement brought customers from across motorcycle community, while Fay's diagnostic innovations prevented wrongful federal prosecutions through systematic evidence analysis that distinguished authentic vintage components from planted evidence designed to frame innocent organizations. 5 years later, Fay Cross had established diagnostic standards adopted by federal agencies while training hundreds of mechanics in authentication techniques that prevented systematic evidence planting operations targeting motorcycle organizations. Her partnership with Hells Angels proved that mutual respect transcended social stereotypes when based on demonstrated competence rather than assumed limitations. She learned that Grandpa Pete's wisdom applied beyond mechanical repairs. Real people fix what's broken in relationships, communities, and systems of justice, not what they expect to be broken based on prejudices that prevent cooperation between those who should be allies in pursuit of truth and excellence. Real mechanics fix what's broken, not what they expect to be broken, and sometimes what needs fixing isn't the machine, but the trust between people who should be working together.